In the meantime, the Minister of Interior, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, has vowed that all inmates who escaped from the Abolongo Custodial Centre of the Nigerian Correctional Service in Oyo State will be recaptured. The minister, while inspecting the facility, gave the assurance, well, he says, 446 inmates of the medium custodial centre have now been rearrested. The minister says the attack on prisons in the country are premeditated and meant to ridicule the government. While Aregbesola says jailbreaks and attacks on prison worsened after the NSAS protest in the country. Well, for more on this, Arise News analyst Mahmud Jega joins me now to have this conversation. Mahmud, thank you so much for being here. I want to start from the bottom up, really. Yeah. The fact that we're seeing a lot of, the insecurity and things happening in the country being blamed on the NSAS protest. Just a few days ago, the Attorney General, Abubakar Malami, had said that, you know what, IPOB, we can blame NSAS to a certain extent. We can blame IPOB for all of that, but NSAS is being blamed for a lot of things in the country. I want to get your thoughts on that, especially looking at the reason why that protest even gained as much momentum as it did.
Well, one of the main events during the NSAS protest was the attack on the Benin prison and the freeing of hundreds of inmates. Maybe that is why the minister now is making this connection. Otherwise, the NSAS protest ended more than a year ago. And as the governor of Oyo State just said in this report, nobody is sure what is the motive, because whoever will attack a prison like this with heavy weapons and dynamite and everything must have a very serious motive. What the motive is at this stage, the governor said we shouldn't speculate, we should wait until the investigation is over. So the minister jumped the gun by linking it to the NSAS protest.
But this incessant attacks on correctional facilities, like you have said, we've seen beyond the situation in Oyo State. We saw a situation in Oyo State and other states as well, where we saw, inmates being freed. I know in Kogi State there was an incident as well. What can we really say is responsible for this? And how come our security agents, despite the fact that we've seen attacks in the past, are really not sitting up or stepping up the security in the centers to avoid these things from happening?
Well, to be frank, it's only in Nigeria. I mean, there are many parts of the world where prisons have been attacked. If you have some very powerful criminals, mafia-like figures, they can always arrange from inside the prison for their supporters to attack the prison from outside and get them free. That's usually one of the main motives. Although the warders are armed enough, to deter the prisoners themselves from trying to escape, but it's a different matter when a very strong group of attackers come from outside. But as you said, I expect every state that has a major correctional facility to have an arrangement where policemen and soldiers, if necessary, could respond immediately. I mean, this is very embarrassing. 800 and something awaiting trial suspects, some of them probably on trial for murder and violent crimes, have now escaped. So the whole community is not safe, honestly, until all of them are
beyond being proactive, where we're trying to, find a solution and get them to come back, like we've seen the minister say there, he's saying, you know what, we need to recapture them and all of that. But how can we forestall all of this from re-happening again? Because we're seeing too many incessant prison breaks happening in Nigeria.
One of the problems is the overcrowding of prisons. I saw a report that said that this particular prison that was attacked in Oyo was built in 2007 to accommodate 160 prisoners. But there are 800 and something awaiting trial. Now that kind of...
Not even the incarcerated ones.
Oh yes, the incarcerated were relatively few. I think they said 64. And luckily that was the section that was not attacked, or the condemned prisoner cell was also not attacked. So most likely the target for freedom was somebody who was awaiting trial for a very serious crime. You see some of the people that escaped came back. If you are standing trial for stealing a goat, it's easier to come back and probably face 3 months in jail than to run all your life. But if you are standing trial for a very serious offense like murder or robbery or something like that, you are likely to come back on your own unless you are apprehended.
You know, the conversation about awaiting trial inmates, or not just in Oyo State, but all across the country, is a different conversation. Where we're seeing over 800 awaiting trial inmates. Some of them have been there longer than 10, 15 years, but still awaiting trial. But you know what? Let's move along, because time is not our friend. Let's talk about the fact that the governor of Katsina State, Aminu Masari, he's talking about the state of emergency to be placed on national security. And the question is, the last time there was a state of emergency placed on the educational sector in Nigeria, how far-reaching has that been? And really, what can that do to really forestall the loss of lives and properties, as we're seeing all across the country?
I've been wondering too, because we are not clear about the meaning of this state of emergency. Sometimes people call for state of emergency in a certain state when they want the governor to be removed. But you know, there is a Supreme Court ruling that says more or less governors cannot be removed because of emergency or for defecting or other things. There are only 4 ways mentioned in the Constitution in which a governor can be removed. So state of emergency is not one of them. In any case, this is a governor calling for state of emergency. So obviously he's not thinking of himself being removed. I think he thinks that the federal government should concentrate all its attention, probably drop everything else and flood the state with soldiers and security and the equipment and everything until we get well. It's a serious concern, because certainly the insecurity is now the country's #1 problem. But even if we declare state of emergency, I don't know whether it will be an improvement over the current situation. But right now there are all kinds of military and security operations going on against insurgents, against bandits. But it's just that they fall short of the requirements.
But he's specific. He's not saying just national, a state of emergency on, he says on national security. How would that work is the question a lot of Nigerians need answers to.
What is happening in Zamfara State now? Well, I don't think it can be more serious than that. There is a major military operation with the Air Force bombing.
Well, the governor loses his powers as the chief security officer of the state if a national state of emergency is actually declared on the state.
Well, the governor will still be constitutionally the chief, but of course, if there is an ongoing military operation, the governor will not have much influence over that, because then you'll have an army commander, because that's why it's war. And the governor doesn't have much of a role to play in there. The biggest problem we have is that we don't seem to have enough soldiers to do it across a broad area, which is necessary. So they are just doing it in Zamfara, close down telecommunications, close down petrol stations, close down weekly markets, and they are also doing it in parts of Katsina State. But you know, the bandits are very mobile. If you do it in one state, they will move to another state. Ideally, we should do it over the whole region. But I don't think the army has the numbers and the equipment to do that over a broad region for now.
Well, the issue of technology comes into play here, but I do know that the Nigerian army is looking in that direction as well. Hopefully, we see some end to all of this incessant killings all across the country. Mahmud Jega, Arise News analyst, for your in-depth analysis, I say thank you very much.